Have you ever wondered what your purpose is? Have you found your version of success? Are you wondering what drives you and gives your life meaning? So are we. And we are delving into the journeys of fellow successful alumni to explore what that answer could be. Wittenberg is a place, and while the names may change, the stories, personalities, and experiences do not. What are HUD and I doing here? We recognize that each one of us is on a journey to try to find our best selves, a journey toward our purpose in life, a journey toward success, to thriving, to whatever that means to us. Being on the other side of our Wittenberg student experience, we know now that there is no one right path, that there are many different forks in the road. The mission of our time together each show is to help you, our audience, know that there are many different paths to purpose, to experience, to success. Your path to Wittenberg was different. Your path after Wittenberg, as ours was and is, will be different too. On our journey together, we are exploring these three different parts of the path so that we can pass the light from the stories and experiences our fellow alumni are sharing with us on their way to success.
All right, I'll take it from here, Timmy.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. Now our guest tonight is Aric Thomas, 99 graduate, math major, education minor. Absolutely, got that right. He is now the principal at Worthington Kilbourne High School in Columbus. So Aric, he was an athlete through and through, grew up playing sports and fell in love with more than one sport, and he worked hard to excel at. He fell in love with two sports, football and baseball.
And growing up in German Village, he made the baseball travel team back when those were rare and hard to get on. In addition, he loved two-a-days so much so that right on the heels of summer travel baseball season, he strapped on his pads and went right into fall football season. He got so good at football that he was recruited by all three, Middle Tennessee State University, Butler, and Bowling Green, and was tempted with scholarships, but he wanted to be a dual sport athlete. Luckily, Wittenberg's field was his field during travel baseball summers, so he became very familiar with Wittenberg's rolling hills and beauty, and between that and wanting to play dual sports, the strength and interest of the football coaching staff and the baseball coaching staff, and feeling like he wasn't just going to be a number at Wittenberg, he chose WIT. So we're kind of here at fork number one, which is WhyWitt. Can you tell us more or a little bit more about why you chose Wittenberg?
Yeah, I knew about Miami Valley, Springfield, where
Sure.
it's located, and traveling over here for baseball and the competition, it felt natural to come to Wittenberg. But I will say, even with visits and meeting faculty, talking with coaches and recruiters, you felt like they wanted you there for you. They didn't want you to fill a number, to fill a role as a checklist, but they wanted you as the person, and they were interested in what you were interested in. What do you want to be?
Sure. And why was that important?
I felt like, for me, I was like many people I came to school with, a first college goer in our family, and I felt like family was important, and I wanted to have that sensation, and Wittenberg provided that.
So you were a first-gen college student?
Yeah.
No one else in your family had gone to college
No.
before. And so this was a pretty significant moment.
Yeah.
What kind of kept you here through those trying moments? Because I know that first-generation college students are not necessarily it's hard to kind of persist and stay through those challenging moments of being away from home.
Yeah, and you think you come as a football player, a recruit, and you come on campus, you get to come a little early.
Yeah.
And you get to be around a bunch of guys who are battling through the same things. I think having that, camaraderie and that drive to get the best out of yourself was attractive. Like, I wanted to be around other people that wanted to do that.
So it was the team aspect.
Yeah.
I see you.
Can you talk about being first generation and going to South High School in Columbus, and for those folks that are not familiar with the demographics of South High School. They may see you now as a principal at a suburban high school. Can you talk about how like the makeup socioeconomically of South High School, helped to assist your transition to Wittenberg? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So I mentioned to you guys before, like I lived in German Village before it was cool to live in German Village. So walking to high school, the demographics were there were more black students of color than white students at the high school I went to. But I didn't know that at the time.
Yeah.
Like I didn't.
Yeah.
I mean, that was normal. Working poor. They took their lunch pails to work. They walked to the steel factory down the street. Like they didn't drive to work, they walked to work. And I don't feel like I had a hardship of an upbringing as a child or anything like that. But I think what the adults around me saw in me was someone who was focused and driven to do better, to be better. And I think the nudges and the encouragement and having someone believe in you, I think that goes a long way. Just having an adult believe in you and encourage you, whether it's a coach or a teacher or a parent or an uncle, I had that. And I think that helped with the transition here because Taver Johnson, I think a lot of people would recognize that name. He has that intensity of investing in you, and you feel that draw, and it's like, that's what my counselor did at school, like the same behaviors.
Yeah, so he was one of your principal recruiters?
Yes.
Okay. Legend, if people don't know, Taver Johnson, multiple All-American in the Wittenberg Hall of Fame football player. Great guys. We both know him. So when did you know you were going to go to college when you were at South? Because I'm assuming probably over 50% of your class or more did not go to college. So at what point did you know, like, I'm going? Was it sports where like sports is going to get me to college?
I think it was, probably for many people, like, it wasn't an option. Your parents are like, you're going to college, and so that was that resonated with me. But it was definitely the sports. Like, I wanted to be a very good player, so I put in the work and the time and the effort to be a very good player, whatever the sport was, the competition. And where can you continue to do that after high school? College. That's where you continue to do it. So that was a natural progression for me.
Yeah. So that's great. So we can talk about kind of, you're here on campus, right? You mentioned travel baseball allowed you to actually be playing on Wittenberg's field, and you made the decision, turned down some walk-on possible scholarship opportunity. So you're here, you're in the dorm. What dorm did you live in your freshman?
Tower, 4 or 5.
I mean,
I'm still here. Come on.
Listen, I'm not saying anything about Tower. Listen,
Your face.
Look, never lived there. Visited. So
air conditioning.
Yeah,
had air conditioning.
You had AC.
That is.
Do you remember who your freshman roommate was?
Yeah, Jonathan Heskett from Union Odo High School. Yeah.
Okay.
Chillicothe area.
Okay. How quickly were you when you were here? Because you knew you were going to play football, baseball. So you had to get here a little early, probably for camp. How quickly did it take you to become comfortable? Like, okay, I'm cool. Like, were you still trying to find your tribe?
I'm still trying to find my tribe.
Yeah.
In life.
So like, I felt pretty comfortable with Heskett, my roommate. I felt pretty quickly. He was a football recruit. He played high school sports. Like a lot of things just clicked. Different parts of Ohio, but things clicked. But that first night that you're in the dorm, you sleep and you wake up and you don't know where you are and you don't know where the restroom is. It took a little bit of time to get through that, because even though you're here early, the campus is empty. I mean, as it related to a few weeks later when everyone got here. But what was cool on the football team, when you come here from a poor segment of population, and you come here and you see the cars that your teammates are driving, you go, well, maybe I don't fit in. But Rodney Hopkins, we mentioned off air.
Fleet.
Like there's some kids from other parts of Ohio and outside of Ohio that had a similar story than I did. And so it's funny how we gravitated, like the Cincinnati kids and the Columbus kids and the Dayton kids, they kind of all found each other somehow.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was in the ethos or what, but we found each other somehow, like our stories connected. And then that bonding, that friendship, we go, okay, I got you. You got me, I got you. Okay. And that friendship, was forged.
Yeah. It's great.
Can you take us into fork number 2?
You know,
because we're on campus now, right?
Now you're
like,
on campus.
This is what happens while we're here.
I don't know if so you're here, and we're going to jump and then come back. I know Timmy hates when I do that. So I always like to ask one of the
of course,
key
you would
questions.
Not follow
so
my
we're at one point, we're going to have to clip this all together because we get the answers. So you're here, not saying your daughter's out in the audience. So whether it was freshman, sophomore, junior, or senior year, where were your favorite hangouts?
The bird.
The bird. I guarantee you right now, that is the number one selection of everybody who got the bird.
McMurray's, Bird, Savoy, Ringside.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's one place you didn't mention.
I know.
Station. Yeah. There you go.
Well, you didn't
I did that on purpose.
We didn't. Yeah. I wasn't
But I
there
did
yet.
that on purpose.
Yeah, you did it. So the bird was definitely.
The underage hangout.
It was thank you for
the
saying
underage
it.
hangout.
Underage hangout.
We can't say that.
Is there an underage hangout now around?
They're not allowed to answer that.
You can't answer that? Okay, with your dad here, you can't answer that. So obviously, being social was an important aspect of bonding. So now we can dig back more into the academic side. So why don't you take it from there? Because I know you want to get deep into
stuff.
We gotta humanize there. We gotta make sure that people realize he's a human being before he was a principal.
The topic of this talk show is building the human principle. So you're not Belt. I mean, you maybe.
Can you explain who Principal Belding for the audience?
If you've ever watched Baywatch, no. Baywatch,
where's your mind at? Do I need to Saved by the Bell?
You do it.
Listen,
a slow run on the beach.
never, just for the folks out there, I've never
muscles,
seen
no
an episode of Baywatch. I don't know where his mind's at, but my mind's not there. So Saved by the Bell, which was in our generation, I don't know if some of the younger folks, a very funny show. They had an incredible caring, but yet comedic principal who kind of kept the chaos together.
Little bumbling.
Yeah. So kind of like Steve from The Office if he was your principal, in a way.
Yeah. But we loved Belding because it when I was going to school, the principal just felt like out of reach and untouchable and all of that. And as you're going through school and considering whether you want to go into administration or not, if you don't feel like there's like, oh, I'm going to become a principal, that feels kind of stodgy and kind of, right? Yeah. But we wanted to kind of connect the dots with the fact that, being a principal is very human.
Yeah.
So as Aric arrived on campus and got more ingrained here, he kept noticing that the coaching staff kept mentoring not only but he and his teammates more and more, especially Coach Tabor, as we've mentioned. Can you kind of talk more about kind of being mentored by a coach? That's it's not necessarily exactly all the time that you would think that would be, because coach, you're just it's a coach, that's it. This is more a mentor than coaching.
And I don't even know if you realize you're being mentored in the moment. It's more in your reflection, your reflections. But you know that they're taking a keen interest in you and your development. And you get these little lessons, these life lessons that are hard more times than not, especially coming from coaching staff.
Or when you're running sprints.
When you're running, and so we ran these around the field, and they were timed in each position. The running backs had to run it in a certain time, and linemen in a certain time. But the first two coaches were Rick Willis, defense coordinator, Tabor Johnson, linebackers coach. They were the first two. I was first to both of them. And then the receivers coach and the offensive coordinator, I was last. But I was first to them, So that's sort of that mentorship. You want to prove yourself to them as you're rounding and conditioning. But they pick you up when you're knocked down. I mean, I think that's what a mentor does. They don't clear the path for you. They nudge you along the path. And as you trip, they help you back up. They let you dust yourself off and keep moving. I think that's what a good mentor does.
But college is easy. It's it's straight, it's no problem. Everything kind of
very linear.
It's very linear.
Yeah, I think my linear algebra class wasn't even linear. So.
But no, I mean, literally, can you take me into a moment where they were really helpful and really mentored you through something?
Yeah, I get here and I'm the oldest cousin within my my cousin group. So I'm the first to go to college, but I'm also the oldest. And I lost my grandfather my first year here. And so I didn't have a lot of death because most of my family was young in comparison in relation to my age. And so, I go home and I'm scared to ask the coach for like permission to go home. And they're like, they could tell something's on my mind. And they're like, what's going on? And Thomas, what's going on? And I tell them, they're like, what are you doing here?
Yeah.
Like,
why are you still here?
And I feel like this is where I'm supposed to be. They're like, no, this isn't where you're supposed to be. You're supposed to be at home with your family. And it's like those little moments that you feel thankful, but then you reflect like, yeah, that's where I'm supposed to be.
But the fact that they even noticed that something was off to then stop and say something,
Correct,
and ask you the right question at the right time.
And that's what you get at Wittenberg. You're not getting it in a larger place. But that's what you get here. People that take keen interest in you.
So we talked early kind of into the intro that you were a math major, but that was not your determined major when you walked on campus here.
Yeah.
What was your determined major?
Art. I think we all filled out a questionnaire. I'm sure back then it was snail mail. You filled it out and mailed it back in. And it's
Postcard
like, what are your interests? Football, baseball, art. And it's like, well, let's put him in some art classes, And I'm like, I don't have a math class on here. Yeah, you'll take that next semester. Yeah, it was art.
You had common learning, though.
Common learning.
That took care of it.
Nature versus nurture, Darwinism. Yeah, evolution. Oh, I remember a lot of that.
So that just sounds like kind of a holistic picture where it's kind of, you kind of walked on a campus and saw very different, so your experience kind of, I'm guessing at South, was kind of the 3 R's, arithmetic and reading and writing and all that. You get on a campus and it's almost kind of this, wait, there's more to the world and life, and I can actually take classes on art and some of these other things, and common learning with Darwinism and some of these other, right? So it's kind of this fuller experience.
Correct.
What, kind of as you're going through that, why didn't you stay with art?
That's a good question. I didn't feel, I didn't feel after having, I think, Jack Mann as my professor, I didn't feel like I was that good at art. I thought I was. And then I'm like, well, this might not be for me.
Yeah.
Let me explore some other areas.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And then what were kind of the first couple of areas you explored?
History, history, I feel like that was one, and then math was another. Those are two that I kind of gravitated towards to see what they were like.
And so you talked about once you found math, there was kind of a click for you.
Yeah.
But then you realized what you had to do to make up. Can you talk about that?
So I didn't have a math course that first semester, and then the second semester I think I had a pre-calculus course. Nothing, very, freshman year type course. And I'm like, yeah, this clicked. And then I declare my major sophomore year, and then they tell me how many classes I have to take to get there. And I was tripling up 2 different semesters to catch up to my cohort, to catch up to the other students who came in either ahead or they knew early on and then stuck with math. Yeah.
And was it worth it to do that work and to
completely.
Okay.
Completely.
Why?
I think it's worth it because one, you're pursuing something that you enjoy. I think that's first and foremost something that really speaks to you and you enjoy, and that it isn't a burden all the time to put the time and effort into. But secondly, at a place like Wittenberg, the professors, they're like right by one another. I'm not walking across campus and seeing different people. They know each other. I feel like the math professors at the time I was here, like they likely hung out together. I mean, I don't know that for sure, but they likely hung out together. And so they see, me in 3 different classes, and I think that, again, just like...
They saw a pattern.
Yeah, they saw a pattern.
Was there one particular professor or one or two that stood out to you, or that really kind of cemented your decision to go as a math major?
I feel like Doug Andrews, stats professor here, he was eclectic in his style and his teaching methods, and I really thought that was cool. Al Stickney was like the governing body of math, and very intelligent, high performing, and you just wanted to be around him because he was smart. He was smart. So those are 2 that stand out. But I really do feel like I was blessed to have good professors in all of my courses. Yeah.
So I want you to hear this loud and clear, that as an English major, the fact that you're like talking about math the way that I think about English just is so foreign to me. I don't even understand it, but I can understand like the internal feeling where you're like drawn to math, and man, this professor talks about it in this way, and it's very eclectic, and that was engaging. But what I realized by HUD's question and your answer is that you weren't just being mentored by coaches. You were also, to some degree, kind of being engaged with on multiple levels with the professors as well, especially your math ones as you got more and more time.
Yeah, I think that connection that you're referencing, that connection is abundant here, or the opportunities for connection are abundant here. And
well said.
And I would say that the students on campus, whether it was 25 years ago or today, asserting themselves to make those connections, to put themselves in position to feel uncomfortable.
Sure.
Because on the other end, the professor on the other end wants that connection too.
Yes.
That's what I realized my time here.
Yeah, because that's what the heck they're doing.
Yeah, they
right? They're like, I'm not showing up to teach this class so that I can just teach this class. I want to look into somebody else's eyes and watch them engage back with me and like get the information, and fall in love with it the way I do.
So you're a math major. You mentioned the importance of social work that you did at Wittenberg, some volunteer work. How did that affect you? And then how did that affect your decision to go into teaching?
Yeah, that's, when you're a student here, sometimes you don't understand the reasoning behind some of the things you have to do. Common learning, for example, is something you don't understand. The other is we had to do service hours by the end of our sophomore year. And the university did a nice job of helping place you if you couldn't find locations. And Osterland is a school close to Springfield that serve youth that have been physically or emotionally abused. And the students have been treated as a castaway. And they're young people. And so that was my assignment, is to go out there and hang out. And I think we played ultimate frisbee and threw the football, played basketball. And you see, again, I'm speaking in reflection. At the time, I didn't understand that they were broken. I didn't understand that they had issues that they were dealing with and that they were getting therapy and things. I didn't understand any of that. I had to show up at this time and hang out with them, play sports, throw football. But that was fun. Like, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed that they look forward to seeing us, to hang out, and at the time I didn't know, but I'm that college student over there, and they're 15, 16 years old, and they were looking up to me, I assume, and but that connection, I wanted more of that. I wanted more of that, and then education was the place to find it.
Yeah.
But why did you want more of that? Like, what was it about it, those moments that kind of drew you in, and you didn't want to have stop?
You're always searching for purpose in life, whether you're young or old or somewhere in between. You're always searching for a purpose, and that fulfilled a purpose that I didn't know I had, which was to help others. I didn't want to scorn others. I didn't want to push others away, but it fulfilled something inside of me that helped me feel like I was meant to do something more, and lifting other people up was it. Yeah.
So now we're at fork number 3.
Fork 3.
Which is, Aric has graduated. He had his time at Osterland. He was determined, by the way, not to be a principal, but he knew he wanted to teach. Tell me more.
Yeah, teach and coach. Work with youth. So, I wanted to give back to the community that I felt gave a lot to me. And that was Columbus City Schools. And so I remember student teaching here at Springfield Shawnee, just down the street. But I was interviewing. I was going places to interview while you're doing your student teaching to try to get a job for the next school year. And drove into Columbus, met at the board office downtown, and met with their HR person, and ended up getting hired probably sometime in February or March. But in Columbus at the time, you got hired at the district, and then you had to go interview at the schools, and that came later. But I wanted to do that. I wanted to give back, and immediately it was like, okay, I get hired, at Beechcroft High School in Columbus, and then who are the football coaches? Who are the baseball coaches? Who's the basketball coach? It didn't matter. I just wanted to coach and do that as well. So
you get hired, and coaching is what you fall into as well as teaching. Is that true or false?
Yeah. So get hired at Beechcroft, and then a Wittenberg grad, Brent Dearball, was the principal there at the time. He's from Wapakoneta. He said, okay, I'm hiring you as the math teacher, and you're going to coach. perfect. I want to coach. What sport? And he's like, baseball. I'm like,
Oh, right in your.
that's great.
Sold.
That's great.
Right
Sold.
there, yeah.
So it was, I don't know if it was contingent or not. Kind of felt like it might have been, but I was willing.
Yeah. How long were you at Beechcroft?
7 years. 7
Wow,
years at Beechcroft.
okay.
Yeah.
How did you like teaching? And the reason why I asked that question is because obviously you made the decision to get into administration.
Yeah.
And the teachers I know are kind of like, I don't ever want to be in administration.
Yeah.
So was there a moment or moments that you were like,
Yeah.
this
No.
might not be my true calling?
I think teaching has always been my true calling, and I still like doing it today. But what catapulted me, what nudged me into the administration side, was Brent Dearball, the person I referenced. He retired, and we got a new principal, and her name was Sarah Wyckoff, and I wanted to help her. Like I felt like a need to help, and so I started taking some grad classes, thinking in my mind, well, I'll just go get my licensure to be a principal, Ohio State, and she'll hire me. Life doesn't work
out.
Doesn't work that way. So you take courses and you learn a little bit more, and you're trying to help, but everything is fluid and going. But it wasn't, I was getting away from teaching. It was more, I want to help make our school better. I want to make Beechcroft a better high school. And I think I have something to offer. Whether I did or didn't, at the time, I don't know, but I felt like I did.
Yeah.
So like you loved the hands-on nature of the teaching itself and also the coaching. But I mean, isn't administration a little more, if not way more hands-off? Or are you saying that that's not necessarily the case?
It's not necessarily the case. Like instead of your team being, 17-year-old boys, your team is now 47 teachers, and they all have their positions, their departments, and they work together. And you're there to, I think, foster an environment that breeds collegiality, communication, connection, and sometimes you're the mentor, sometimes you're a kind ear to listen to someone's issues. But I do think that the arena shifts, but the work isn't too different.
So now instead of direct kind of engagement with the students, you're now kind of coaching the coaches?
Yeah.
Is that fair to say?
It's very fair. And some I was learning from as well. So I was coaching the coaches, but when I get to go in and see a teacher teach, you go, man, that was a pretty good lesson. What did they do differently? Can I help someone else see that, or coach that?
So you would almost kind of try to pair teachers with
Exactly.
teachers to like, hey, they're doing something awesome
Exactly.
and you're doing something awesome too, and why don't you two, you might get along and maybe you two learn from each other? Is that what you're suggesting?
I would say exactly, and this is a very short story, but I remember talking with biology teachers, and they were struggling teaching vocabulary acquisition, struggling trying to get kids to learn, and
Sure.
it takes some rote memorization a bit.
I still don't understand biology, but keep going. Yeah.
So who was really good at teaching that? The Spanish teachers. So how can I get the Spanish teachers and the biology
Holy
teachers to
crap.
work together? Because the Spanish teachers are, when they're teaching the word, okay, say it with me. And I'm like, if the biology teachers would do what the Spanish teachers are doing, maybe we could get somewhere. So that was a really cool experiment.
Did it work?
I think it worked, yes. I mean, do I know definitively if it worked or not?
Right.
No, but I'm pretty sure that the connection worked. The sharing of ideas worked. The, hey, what do you do? Hey, this is what I do. Comparing notes worked, for sure.
So what was your first, were you assistant principal first, and then before you got the principal job?
Yeah.
Where were you assistant principal at?
Assistant principal at Groveport Madison High School, southeast part of Columbus, suburb between Pickerington and Grove City.
That's a tough school district.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you teach with another Wittenberg grad, Amon Dobbins?
Amon Dobbins,
AJ,
Yep.
yeah. Another great guy, another
Yep.
football guy. And so you were there for how many years?
I was there 11. 4 as an
11. Oh, wow.
assistant
Yeah.
and 7 as a principal.
And what made you leave? Because you grew up in the city. You mentioned before you went to WhyWitt. You wanted to go back and give back to the city. And then now you are presented with the opportunity to come to the suburbs.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, I'm glad, full disclosure, My daughter graduated from Kilbourne, so you did a great job. But what made you? That's a big leap, right?
Yes.
That's a chance. It's a different environment. You're dealing with some different set of obstacles.
Yeah.
So what led you to go from Groveport to Worthington, Kilbourne?
Yeah, I don't, like it's one of those things where I had a really good situation in Groveport. I had, Ohio schools are governed by a board, not dissimilar from other states, but I had a great relationship with 5 board members. And so as an administrator, that's not always the situation.
Yeah.
I felt like superintendent and I got along really well. What I felt like is this might provide me, it's a bigger district, might provide me more opportunities to expand. So, some parts of administration, it's a wait until your opportunity comes. And this was an opportunity for me to seize that could branch off into other areas. I don't feel like I was running from anything or felt like it was, bad, but it was definitely different. And people are people. I mean, they really are. But the hardest part about Groveport Madison, for me, is you try to lift others up. You try to help them. You're carrying a lot of emotional baggage for people. No one wants to see a 15-year-old carry the things they carry, and you're trying to pull them from them. Like, here, I got you. I got you.
Yeah.
We'll do this.
And so you do that, and there are kids at Kilbourne that have that as well.
Same thing, right?
Same thing. The quantity is different.
Yep.
The quantity is different. So. I was leaving a great opportunity. We were building a new high school. We finally got the community to pass a levy to support a new school and support it financially to another school district that was on the heels of passing a levy, building new schools. So it was really cool to see the transition and be able to offer some of my experiences in Groveport to Kilbourne.
Well, and it sounds like you left Kilbourne or Groveport in a pretty good place. I mean, you had gotten the levy passed and or at least helped to get that passed and kind of move it in a positive direction.
Yeah. Just a couple weeks ago, they had an alumni day where they had like an alumni softball game and a soccer game. Groveport did.
Sure.
And they called and invited me, which it's 11 years, it's been 7 years removed, and still some of the coaches and kids, and it was fun just to go back and watch them, run amok on the softball field. And
So it's no different than in a corporate career of you finishing your work, moving on to the next opportunity.
Yeah.
Right. So can you kind of compare and contrast, like being principal at Groveport versus being at Worthington, Kilbourne? There's some commonalities, as you mentioned. Any dramatic differences, resources?
Yeah. Resources, Central Ohio is blessed because I feel like all of the suburban school districts and even Columbus has pretty good resources, pretty good place to live and be and raise kids. The biggest difference is, as you can imagine, Groveport has a lot of turnover with students moving in and out of housing, but also with teaching and administration. There are people who've been there decades and doing really good work, but it's a hard place. So teachers would come and go pretty quickly, and I remember calling a teacher's mom and saying, "Hey, I just want you to know your daughter's doing great. I know this is hard."
Wow.
And I was, I was sincere about it, but I was also thinking of anything I could do to help build their support network. And calling a parent of a teacher who's I thought doing well, I thought would translate to that. And you're just doing those things. But I would say because of the turnover, systems kind of fall, come and go as well. And when you go to Kilbourne, Worthington has strong roots in education. It's a suburb that's pretty well planted in Central Ohio, and so when things happen, you go, we have a system for that. We have a system for that, or we have a culture that has been supported over decades that will support that.
Yeah.
So those are the biggest differences.
So you kind of asked about and made a reference to kind of corporate life and those kinds of things. Corporate life also has boards, and you made mention of kind of difficult boards that work together. Can you how do you navigate that and those as a principal?
Yeah, I think in leadership, you have to care deeply, and you have to express that care through how well you communicate with others, how well you include others in collaboration.
Sure.
The connections that you make towards your programming, keeping people informed of what's going on, but also with a board, you want to keep them at bay a bit, not necessarily
I understand.
to hide anything, but you want to keep them at bay so they can do the 30,000 foot view work. You know, in the weeds it gets messy and things of that nature. So you give them enough information so they feel good about what's going on, so that you can have your feet on the ground moving forward.
Would you ever consider like being a superintendent of a school district, or joining, you know, the board? You got to go through the election cycles.
Sure.
Would you ever? Has that ever crossed your mind?
Yeah, I think it has crossed my mind. But I would say this: I didn't ever set out to be a principal. And, you know, like
you just wanted to be a teacher.
I just wanted to teach and coach. Just teach and coach. And so you do things, and I think people take notice of that.
Yeah.
When you do things, when you care and you connect, people notice, and then they say, "Hey, have you thought about?" And if you're sincere to yourself, if you're trying to really serve and lift others up, I think people take note. I think a superintendency is not out of reach.
Yeah.
It's nothing I'm actively pursuing, but it's something that I think I would explore given the right opportunity.
Right opportunity.
Yeah.
You heard it here first.
Yeah, you heard it here first.
We'll put it out there.
Yeah.
So let's talk about some of the difficulties of being like the CEO of a school. And you're dealing with everything that has to go with your particular school. Has there been incidents, I'm sure there have, that you can talk about where you had to make a decision whether I was getting rid of something, not getting rid, sorry, going through steps to remedy a major problem?
Yeah, administration, building level administration, every day is different. To be an effective leader, you have to build genuine connections with your teachers, with your staff. But there are times when the staff isn't meeting the expectations of the district or the school or the community, and I've had to terminate friends. I've had to terminate friends, and that's not easy. It's not easy, but it's necessary. And so you think of the betterment and well-being of the student first, and you try to make it you try to give the person a fair opportunity to make the adjustments needed, but you have to be very clear in your expectations. It can't be, I have this feeling, I need to see these things. And if you don't see these things, you help walk them to that resignation or that termination.
You have to have metrics. You have to have...
Exactly right, exactly right.
So walk us through a day in your life. You pull in, you got your parking spot, no one parked
Right up front.
Right up front, right in front of Kilbourne. Like, what time do you generally get in? What time do you get up in the morning? Like, people need to know. Like, I know it seems silly, but like, I don't know what time you get up.
Our audience are students, and they're considering whether or not they want to do the work that you do, right? And you're a success.
Yeah.
And they look at that, and I think it's it's a great question.
You got one or two phones?
I just have one.
Really?
There was a time I had two.
They didn't give you a second phone?
No, I have
Oh
one
man,
now.
you need the two phones.
No,
man.
you do not.
Yeah. I have two phones, but
Of course you do.
Yeah. So so typically, what time do you awake?
Day in the life.
Yeah, Dan.
Okay, all right. I don't know if it's normal or abnormal, but I wake up around 5 a.m. I go to the gym.
I feel you.
Yeah.
I go to the gym and I work out for an hour. I come home and I shower and I get to work. Our day is a little bit later than most area high schools, and maybe most in the state. Our school day starts at 8:40. I get there about 7:15. About 7:15. About an hour and a half before everyone else. And that first 45 minutes is so nice. So nice. I am like catching up on email and getting things set for the day. But that's my morning routine. And I will say, like, I don't like getting up early. I complain every day I get up early. Don't like it. But it's the only time that I get for me. Yeah. And so I value it. I savor it. Really do. And there's health benefits to working out.
Yeah. Sure there.
Whatever that is. But I get there about an hour and a half before most people. So the custodian usually beats me in, and I'm right on his tailpipe, going in.
Do you have a parking spot?
I park around back. I am not a parking spot guy.
Okay.
I'm usually kind of inconspicuous. Park around back. I'm not an upfront kind of parking guy.
The back door. All right. So the school bell rings, and take me through the rest of the day.
Yeah. So typically, right before the bell rings, I'm in the commons area, lunchroom, where the kids gather. The bell rings, they go to class. I like to be the first voice they hear. So I do a morning announcement. It's usually something very trivial. You know, something
Cheesy.
about cheesy.
Yeah.
Have a good day.
Very belting of
Yeah.
Field hockey team won last night. Congratulations, ladies. You know,
Yeah. Right.
something just to open their day. And I took that from another leader who I felt like it just set the tone. I wasn't setting the tone forcefully. I was setting the tone with, okay, we can start. And then I make my rounds those first 2 periods, try to check out today, silly, but we're going through a major renovation project. And so the heating and cooling has been off, and on a sweltering day like today, hence the haircut. I'm in rooms checking temperatures of rooms and reporting back to maintenance what the rooms are, because the teachers don't have time to do that. And you know, the custodians are getting cleaned up after breakfast. So those are the sort of the things that I do. I want people to see me. I want to feel like I'm approachable. So making your rounds and seeing people in their element, in their areas is very important.
And then, having an excuse to do that, like, oh, I'm just checking temperature.
Hey. I do that, and I usually walk the campus afterwards. So we have 50-some acres, and I just kind of do a big loop around the campus just to get a feel for what's out there. By the time I come in, lunches have started, and sort of the lunch routine is you have a meeting or two, but you're also out there trying to supervise students and things of that nature. And watching 400 kids eat lunch, it was better when I was younger, but you think of the food court at the mall back in the 90s, it's probably like just a mess. And then, you know, the day progresses, evaluations, emails, parents, meetings. I mean, it's really, I'm at the beck and call of others. And I try to make my schedule available to them, and I try to do my work outside of the bell hours. So as the buses leave, I go back in, retreat, try to get things set up so that the next morning I come in, things are ready to go.
So are you typically done 5, 6?
I'm probably pulling out of the parking lot around 4:15, 4:30.
Okay.
I have an 8th grader who's involved in sports, and so I'm trying to track
over
down.
at McCord?
He's down at Hamilton Township.
Hamilton, you said it. Your daughter mentioned that. So you gotta get to the sports.
Yep.
Go ahead.
You go.
Yeah. So the times are different now. There's obviously social media is huge, something that we didn't have to deal with. And I know that's one of the, God, I mean, I just remember when my daughter was there are people firing off Twitters and the Instagram. I can't say the Instagram, IG, whatever the kids say.
The Twitters.
I mean, like X. How does that? Because you have to monitor that. If someone sends a thread, or if they're the bullying, how big a part of your job is that now?
It's a significant part. Whether it's directly related to an actual post on social media or the ramifications that come from it, like the conflict that's caused by it. I would say, and this, I mean, this is anecdotal in a sense, but I would say it's the biggest distractor to public education. It's the biggest distractor. And I think 10 years ago, there was like this is going to be really good. This is going to revolutionize. And I think it did. It connected people in a unique way. But then the worst of people come out.
Yep.
The worst of people come out, and the naysayers and the antagonists come out and poke. And they can do it from a distance.
Yep.
And I think the hardest part from my time in school is if I were bullied, it stopped at 3 o'clock.
Yeah.
It didn't start again until the next morning at 8.
God,
and now it just continues and perpetuates, and your weekends aren't free of it. And I feel incredibly terrible for students in that regard.
Yeah.
And I tell kids this, I think they're extremely smart. I think they're smarter now in school than ever. And I think we gave them a tool that caused a problem that they'll have to solve because we're not equipped to solve it.
Yep.
So I don't know what to do.
Right. Do you
ban it? I don't know.
Yeah. Do you have programs in place? Like my high school in Cincinnati was one of the first schools to go no cell phone.
Yeah.
And I know that trend's kind of picking up. What's your policy?
Yeah, we're a put away
in class.
In class, they can have it at lunch and during passing periods. And I would say the students are abiding by that for the most part. I'm not saying it's perfect by any means, but the governor came out with a law that goes into effect next summer, and so schools are trying these out, these different bans, if you will, on cell phones, or different levels of banning cell phones. And in our middle schools and elementary schools, they do a much better job because I don't think they're as prevalent with students in terms of usage and things like that. I think they like having them, but I don't know if they're using them at the same degree.
Yeah.
But it'd be interesting to see where we are 5 years from now, 10 years from now. And I think a lot of the mental health that we're seeing of young people is that they're not equipped to handle conflict in a way that it's being presented to them.
Right.
Well, and it's 24/7 now.
24/7.
Yeah.
24/7. There's no reprieve.
Can't turn it off.
Yeah.
One more, and this is.
And then we got to turn to the audience.
Then we got to turn to the audience because we're almost at that time. In these times, active shooter, you're doing that.
Yeah.
How many times a year, and how those students, how are they reacting to that?
Yeah, we had a lockdown drill today, an active shooter drill today.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Where we locked down, and my job is to run around, check doors, make sure I can't see through windows and things like that. The kids are so resilient. I mean, children are resilient. I don't want to call 17-year-olds children, but they roll with the punches better than we do as adults. And so I think sadly, I think they're used to it.
Wow.
Sadly, I think they're used to it, and hopefully we can stop that trend in some form or fashion.
Yeah. Are your kids going to matriculate into Kilbourne? You're in Thomas's district, right?
That's okay.
You're just a terrible human being.
Beautiful school.
But their
building.
friends are all going there,
Yeah.
and it's like,
It's that's what I two high school district, and no matter which side of the river, you're going to get an excellent education.
Excellent.
yeah. I know your preference.
Yeah.
It's fine. It's fine. So our time together is about asking the questions that you all have, and so I want to know, is anybody in the audience want? And then when you hear the question, can you repeat it back?
Yeah.
Just for the...
Yeah.
Q's got the...
Mr. Thomas, thank you so much for coming to campus. My name is Claire Patton. I'm a junior education major at Wittenberg. As I look forward, I hope to be a teacher like you did at your Wittenberg experience. What I'm wondering is, now that you've had this great experience out in the community in different educational settings, are there any things you wish you would have learned at Wittenberg or taken advantage of at Wittenberg that will help you in your future career path?
Yeah, so the great question. The question was there anything that I wish I had learned while at campus
Or taken advantage.
of? And I often think back to my time here, and I think of the things that were here. So let me start there. Like the writer's workshop was here. I don't know if that's still math workshop. I worked in the math workshop actually. Those were two great resources.
Damn.
But I wanted to. I think back to what I rested my laurels on was leading by example. I didn't do the other things that I mentioned in this talk show. I had to learn those, like connecting with people, being intentional about connecting with people. You don't know who you're going to be working with. You're in education. There's probably somebody in your classes that will be an administrator somewhere or have a connection somewhere, and our paths cross. Rodney Hopkins, who I mentioned earlier, Carrie Hurd, these are people that went to Wittenberg that we reconnected with after we left, and we didn't know where we were going to be. Rodney's Cincinnati guy, right?
Yeah,
And he's up in Columbus, and we talked. But I think making connections to your classmates and talking education, like what speaks to you, and stealing those ideas and helping mold yourself into a more complete person.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Can we? I want to hear what your daughter has to say about growing up with this guy as a dad, and what's your
I thought it was
major?
question time, not.
Yeah, well, it's
not
a question.
Like,
she
put her on
pulled
the
me
hot
aside
seat.
before the show, and she wants to put her dad on the spot.
All right.
So,
My name is Nicola Thomas. I am his daughter. I'm a junior here at Wittenberg and a psych major. Growing up with my dad and just seeing how involved he is with his schools and with his community and even with Wittenberg, like it was so rewarding to know I was growing up with a hardworking father who really prioritized both his family and his job and just education and furthering that into like molding students and molding kids into knowing it's okay to ask questions, it's okay to fail, and it's okay to, try your dreams and stuff. So I want to know the question for my dad is how rewarding is it to know all the hard work, all the long days, all the phone calls, all the going back and forth from our games, tie games, all the events we have in our lives, how rewarding is it to know you can still give back and you're seeing your students now just so impacted by you, I guess.
Well, that's humbling. The question was, how do I feel? What was it? How do I feel knowing that I've positively affected students and
Many
students. Facebook, we talked about social media. Facebook is a place where people eventually migrate towards. Even young people eventually get there. When they have kids, there's a place where they want to put those pictures. So many of my students now have children and families, and watching what they're doing, I still feel like a proud principal. Like I only see myself as a small part of that. They may see me as a more influential part of that, but I'm only a small part of that. And hopefully I was there to listen. Hopefully I was there to have a shoulder for them to lean on. But it is really cool and rewarding to see students that I had have their children. So I have one student at Kilbourne. She was a senior when I first got to Groveport, and her son is now a junior or a sophomore, at Worthington Kilbourne, and that's pretty cool.
Wow,
that's pretty cool that I'm starting to see generational progress, positivity. So that's really nice. It's humbling. You asked the question. It's very humbling because I'm only doing what I think is right. I hope it's right, but it's what I think is right, and that's give to others, lift them up, let them shine, and I think that helps everyone.
And to some degree, I'm two things. Number one, I'm going to put words in your mouth and simply suggest that you're fumbling through the darkness while you're doing the exact thing that you just said, which is I'm lifting others up, but at the same time, it's like, I'm not sure how this is all going to work, but I'm kind of, is that fair to say?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
And
what do you live by? Strangely, I want to lift others up. I've said that a few times, but I just want to be a little bit better today than I was yesterday. And I don't know how to do that, but other than make sure my connection's a little deeper. Make sure that my effort is a little more.
Yep.
That's it.
Number two, my daughter is 5 years old, and I hope one day to hear those words out of her mouth.
Yeah.
Like that's pretty awesome to have that kind of a father-daughter relationship.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
That's pretty
incredible.
That's pretty incredible.
That's pretty good.
So
yeah,
that's
You
cool.
got a how much time we got? We got a little.
We got like
7,
one
8?
more question if anybody in the audience wants.
We got 7 minutes because I have a 2-minute story about your dad. But
Is this like allowed to be taped?
Yeah. No, this is. I just want to. So.
That one isn't.
This
but
kind
what
of.
he's
No, there's none of those stories. But this kind of ties the Wittenberg connection in, so people know. As Aric mentions, like in life, you'll reconnect with folks from Wittenberg. And I said this on our pre-interview. So my son, who was not a student at Kilbourne at the time, he had graduated McCord. He's at another high school. He woke up in the morning frantically in tears. It's probably like 3 years ago, frantically in tears. Because one of his friends was having a mental episode, and he thought that she frankly had possibly committed suicide. So I probably hadn't talked to Aric since our daughter graduated in 2018. And so I'm talking to his mom, who's also a WIT grad, and I'm like, hold on, let me email Aric right now. And this might have been 6:30, 6:45 in the morning. Aric immediately emails back, I got it from here, tell Jordan it's going to be okay. And that meant so much to my family, but that's the Wittenberg thing. He probably saw my name come across like, what is this early email from this guy? It's got to be fairly important. And not only as an administrator, but as someone, we were in school together. And that's what life's about, right?
Yes.
You always try to do the right thing. And he stepped in, and the day was saved. So that's just something, that's your dad. So.
I have one last question, and then we'll kind of draw it all to a close. Do you miss the one-on-one contact? I'm assuming that there is a lack of one-on-one contact with the students.
Yeah.
Or the volume of one-on-one contact.
I do. I recently we were doing a workshop with teachers. Small group, probably 20 teachers or so. And you chart paper, and you're brainstorming ideas, and I boasted that I can still write upside down. When I was helping kids in math, you just sort of learn to write upside down because they're facing, and you learn to write the numbers upside down, and they think it's a voodoo, a big trick. But it's like, I've been doing this so long, I can do this. And so it spawned that memory of working with people individually. I do miss it. I miss the intimacy of having knowledge, passing it on to others, right? I miss that intimacy that's associated with that. And so whenever there's a void, it's probably that. And so I go and seek it out. I try to. Maybe the recipient's not receptive, but I try to, sneak into the choir room and listen. And I'm not going to hit any notes, but just watching, a director, choir director, work with a student individually, and it's like, that's a little bit. I get to take a little bit of that.
Yeah, you're almost vibing off of them.
Exactly right.
Kind of a thing.
Exactly right.
So today we've learned what it means to be a principal and how to navigate that path. Check us out next month as we keep exploring the deeper answers on WhyWitt, what happens while our guests are here, and how they navigated to their success. You might also notice that we have changed our logo recently. We are evolving from a podcast to a talk show format to foster a live studio audience engagement and meaningful dialogue. Our new tagline, Your Path, Our Stories, reflects our commitment to recognizing that your journey is uniquely yours. We aim to inspire by showcasing the remarkable experiences of our alumni, offering insights that resonate and empower. Thanks for joining us tonight. Have a good night.